All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Future Stream. We are here from Las Vegas live for CES week. We will be here for the next week. You guys will see this background for the next week as well. This is the view from this place. Nice little view, not too bad. We're here, we're live, and I'll be doing the market open every single day. From here, we're gonna miss the market close probably tomorrow and Tuesday, but Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we should be okay. And yeah, we have a little bit to talk about before the overnight markets open. Futures have already opened, and we've got some stuff going on there. But in the next 15 minutes, overnight markets will be open. A little something happened over the weekend that, quite frankly, might have changed the trajectory of humanity. I don't know if that's an understatement or an overstatement, but we'll break down. A lot to talk about, a lot to get into, and excited to be here with everybody. I mean, quite frankly, I did not expect what happened over the weekend. Obviously, I'm talking about what happened in Venezuela with Maduro. I woke up, I slept at 9:30 Friday night. Like, I slept really early, maybe 10 o'clock. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to wake up early Saturday and just get some work done. And I woke up at 4:40 a.m. The notification from the Wall Street Journal, or actually the Trump tweet along with that notification, came out at like 4:45, or it came out at 4:35. So I woke up 5 minutes after it came out. And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, the United States has captured and detained the president of Venezuela, Maduro. And I saw, it was literally the first thing I saw. Then I fell asleep because it was like 4:40 and I woke up at 9 a.m. again. And then I realized, holy crap, what had actually just happened. So this is going to have a lot of implications on the market. We're going to have to talk a lot about what this means on oil prices. Let me just say this right now. I am not a geopolitical expert. However, I think that's okay. Like, you're not expected to be a silver expert or geopolitical expert, but you're expected as a content creator that talks about the world of finance to research this stuff, understand this stuff. And realistically, I've spent the past 48 hours trying to understand what has gone on in terms of the history of Venezuelan politics, what the Venezuelan people think of this, why the United States might have done this, how this has implications for China and Russia. I've got some thoughts. I don't know if they're necessarily going to be the most accurate, but I'll try to relate those back to the broader market. And we'll try to have a discussion in terms of seeing how this all plays out. I guess Steve told you guys to spam CRM. I mean, he should know that it's obviously Palantir over CRM any day of the week, especially after what happened over the week. Because if you don't think Palantir was involved, if you actually read what the government has been saying about how they conducted the operation, it is screaming Maven, screaming it. It's absolutely. I was talking to a couple people, especially Adam, our boy GoCarp, who's like, he's just so deep into Maven and the government business. And we were talking, and he was like, he doesn't know how Maven wasn't the absolute backbone for how this ended up playing out. And for those that don't know, Maven was one of the biggest changes to the government in terms of defense software over the past couple of years. Palantir, I think, has made like $500-600 million off of it. They're probably going to make $5-6 billion off of it over the next 10 years. I mean, it is the critical data collection software that allows the government to do what they are doing. And it seems very likely that Palantir played a role in this. So Palantir did fall a nasty 6% on Friday, likely because people were taking profits. The SaaS sector was down that whole day. So we'll see if that changes based on what happened over the weekend. But I think it'll have a lot of implications on a variety of other stocks. And so we will get into it. All right, so let's get started. We got about 11 minutes until this ends up, until the markets end up opening, at least the overnight markets. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. Hopefully everyone had a great weekend. Again, I will be live every single day from this area. Real quick, before we get started, I didn't know this would happen, but it ended up happening. I'm posting again on Instagram. I made this Instagram like 8 months ago. Not 8 months ago, like 8 weeks ago, back in October. And I said I would post. I didn't end up posting. And then I don't know what got into me Friday night. I started posting. So I'm putting the link in the chat. You can follow me there. I have posted more on Instagram in my Instagram stories in the past 10 hours than I have in the past 10 years. And you know what the real takeaway is? Outside of being able to connect with all of you guys, it's just really cool, like seeing everyone behind the screen and getting to connect with you and answer your DMs and talk to you guys. I've been stalking a bunch of your guys' lives and just seeing like all the diverse back. It's like really cool. It's just so like, it's been really cool to connect with everybody. But number two, it's making me want to buy more meta stock. Like, it's genuinely, and it's like, it's such a stupid reason because it's the most basic argument to go long meta, which is IG. But my goodness, this thing is addictive. Like, I haven't used it in, I think, literally 10 years, like actively posting on it. Last time I did it was maybe high school. And because I didn't really have a reason to post heavily on it. I was focused on X and YouTube and building more of that finance brand. And, the stuff I'm posting on Instagram right now, you can't really post on X and YouTube. That's not like, it's not the same platform for that. So there is a differentiated approach to being able to post on Instagram. By the way, Bitcoin, it took freaking capturing a dictator to get this damn thing to pump, but she's having some love. Robinhood, Coinbase, BMNR, all of those should like this in the next 10 minutes when they open up. But yeah, I'm on IG. I guess I've decided I'm going to post. I mean, a lot of people are seeming to like the content of just behind the scenes. So I'll be posting that behind the scenes all throughout CES. And then, probably throughout 2026, whatever we do, we'll post the behind the scenes of that. So if you want to follow me on IG, there is the link in the chat. And honestly, I really am enjoying interacting with a lot of you guys because it's easier to do that versus on freaking X. Like it's just easier to respond. And I don't know, it's cool. It's cool, like seeing actual human beings and your guys' lives behind the screen. So that's what we got on IG. All right, so let's get started. We got 9 minutes until the market opens, at least the overnight markets. Okay, so we'll talk. I have a bunch of clips that I want to look at when the actual market opens or when the overnight markets opens, and we'll spend a lot more time on what's going on with Maduro. I think let's just talk about general implications first. We'll talk about general implications. I'm curious what other people are thinking in the chat, and then we'll keep going further from there in terms of like actual market implications. So first thing, high level. I think this again. I'm saying I think. I have no idea what this is going to be in the real world. Like these are just my thoughts after 48 hours of trying to study what's happened in Venezuela politics. I think oil prices are coming down. And quite frankly, I don't really have to think too hard because the futures are showing you nat gas prices are down 4%. Why would oil prices come down? Well, Venezuela is home to one of the largest oil reserves in the entire world. As you can see right there, natural gas is down. S&P futures were flat. Let me update them and see if they're flat. We are, basically flat, 0.06%. Silver is acting like a meme stock again, up 5%. But nat gas is down 5%. So why would oil prices come down? Well, if the United States is now going to take control of Venezuela, which we're getting a Trump tweet right now from Cactus. Operation Columbia sounds good to me. Goodness freaking gracious. Is he answering reporter questions right now? Oh, he's probably answering. Yeah, we don't have a tweet. All right, he's probably talking to reporters on Air Force One because he just went back to D.C. from Mar-a-Lago. Colombia, Greenland, who knows what's next. But if we have fully seized Venezuela's oil supplies, which I don't even know if we fully have, but based on what Trump said, and we'll watch some clips, he has said that we are now in control of Venezuela, that oil companies are going to be coming into the region and investing billions of dollars. If that's the case, and we're going to start pumping what could be close to 5 billion barrels of oil today, that's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take a long time before it gets, but the market's kind of pricing in what the dynamics of that would look like. Right now, I think we're pumping 900,000 barrels of oil a day. If that's the case, oil prices are going down. It's just that simple. And if oil prices are coming down, the raw implications, and this is like outstripped of any political context of if this is good or bad, just like the actual economic implication of it, prices are going down across the entire world, especially in the United States. Oil is a direct input cost and an indirect input cost of every single thing imaginable. I mean, airlines, oil prices, quite frankly, that determines a lot of their margins. Data centers with all the energy we're spending. So if that's the case, I think it's bullish because if oil prices come down and the market has to be able to increase more, or the companies can increase their margins and the market starts to recognize that, and we'll probably see that by the end of 2026 in terms of earnings, at least depending on how fast oil prices come down. Like, yeah, that should be bullish. Now, the geopolitical ramifications of what the United States is doing, I don't know if that's going to be bullish because you got a lot of people saying, well, if the U.S. can completely take a president out of their country, why wouldn't China feel emboldened to take over Taiwan? I mean, that's a legit, someone might, now there's different context to how that's playing out, but at its core, you have people thinking that's possible. And so I don't know what the geopolitical ramifications are going to be. We're all going to find out in real time. But in terms of the economic implications, if we actually seize all that oil, yeah, I think that theoretically could be bullish. Trump just said Colombia is run by a sick man. He won't be doing it for very long. Okay, so this is, Trump over the weekend said that they want to take over Greenland. I mean, I don't know if the United States is, or if Trump is deciding this is his ending legacy, that he's just going to take over a bunch of countries. I mean, that 51st state stuff, a lot of it was perceived as a joke. I mean, at this point, it's like seeming like he wants to offer Venezuela the ability to become the 51st state. I don't know what exactly is happening here. Let's just play these two clips before we get into the overnight markets. This is what he said 5 hours ago about Greenland.
We need Greenland for national security, not for minerals. We have so many sites for minerals and oil and everything. We have more oil than any other country in the world. We need Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland for national security.
So that's one thing. He's probably talking to Air Force One people about Colombia. He did mention Cuba. And then this is the part that really made headlines over the weekend, what he said about running Venezuela.
We are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it, essentially, until such time as a proper transition can take place.
As you can see, I mean, I'm listening to that shit in real time. And I think for everyone else who's listening, it's like very explicit. He's not trying to hide the ambitions behind us running Venezuela. Obviously, this brings into questions the concept of regime change, which if we looked at what happened in Iraq and Syria and Libya, again, not a geopolitical expert, but those things didn't necessarily go out the right way. Now, if you hear Rubio's defense of what we did over the weekend, which I'll play a lot more clips after the overnight markets and we'll get those perspectives. This was not for necessarily, in their words, oil, which I kind of don't believe. This was to arrest someone who was engaged in narco terrorism over the past 10 years. And the United States has been giving multiple warnings. Maduro, in the words of Rubio, finally was ready to negotiate in the like coming hours before the attack or before the special operation. And then they decided that they were going to go through with it. Now, again, we're going to talk a lot about the Venezuelan side of this. As an American, I try to have my opinion as tailored towards the Venezuelan people as possible. I think there's some really important perspectives right there. But I'll just say straight up, over the weekend, I have seen multiple perspectives, at least on my X feed, from Venezuelan people. The majority of what I'm seeing is they're happy and they're excited. And we'll play a couple of their videos. But they have been waiting for this moment for 25 years. They have been realizing that, the people, this is why the story of America and our freedom is so important, because we actually fought back against the British. You had to actually fight back for your freedom. Freedom is not free. You have to fight for it. A lot of places around the world, like Venezuela, Iran, it's not easy for them to fight back. Especially when the government has tanks and guns and you don't have that stuff. So the fact that the United States military, which is a multi-trillion-dollar military, came in and just got rid of the guy, it'll either create a power vacuum and it will create an opportunity for another dictator to get in space, or based on what Rubio's been saying, they're working with the new vice president who just got sworn in to become the president of Venezuela, and they're going to become a puppet for the United States until we establish a better regime. Now, this is also not necessarily about democracy, like Iraq was all about democracy. This is more so about getting rid of the drugs that were flowing in, especially because Venezuela is a democracy. It's just when Maduro was democratically unelected by an overwhelming majority in 2024, he didn't leave. He rigged the Supreme Courts. He stayed in power. And so from the Venezuelan side, I'm just a lot of perspectives that I'm crowdsourcing are people that are happy that the United States, even if they hate Trump, they're happy that the United States did this action. The Biden administration was not a fan of Maduro either. And so the question is just going to be, what does this have an implication on geopolitically and then obviously for the broader markets? So I don't know. Again, we are going to see what ends up happening, but there's going to be a lot of different implications from this. Russia and China get a lot of their oil as well from Venezuela. I think this story is just beginning. But today, as the overnight markets open, we're going to see how the markets interpret what goes on. Here we go. Overnight markets are open. Bitcoin 92.4 as we get an open on the day. That is green. Micron's up another 1.3%. Wow, 322 on Micron. Palantir up 1%, 172. Silver's up 1%. Nvidia is up a little bit. SMH, Semiconductor ETF. Remember, on January 2nd, the first day of the market open for 2026, everything was up, then everything was down except the semis. Then by the end of the day, high beta and semis were the winners. It was a very weird way to open up the year, but high beta and semis ended up being the names that got the most momentum. Tesla is up 1.2%. Elon had dinner with Trump and his wife yesterday. So if Elon and Trump can repair their relationship, I guess you got to get rid of your grudge with anyone you have a grudge against. Tesla right there, 444. That's up 1.4%. Next decade, that's up 1%. Does VG trade overnight? VG does trade overnight. That's up 1.4. Again, nat gas prices are down by about 5%. Chevron is, wow, Chevron's up 13%. Oh my. Oh my, Exxon up 5%. Schlumberger is probably up. SLB, that's up 9%. By the way, SLB was up 5% on Friday. Someone definitely knew. Someone definitely knew this was happening. Chevron, 20%. I mean, if you're long Chevron and this is holds, you just did your year. You just beat the S&P. If the S&P can't give you 20%, you just beat the S&P in one day. 19.9%. I guess the oil companies are pumping, even though the prices of oil are down, because the opportunity for billions and billions of dollars to come from Venezuela and for American oil companies in particular to capitalize on that, which is what Trump talked about in the press conference, is what the market is pricing in. Wow. I did not expect that would be the open. I did not expect that would be. Let me know in the chat if you own any of these oil names. If you're long, I mean, if you just own them in retirement accounts, have owned them for years. Oxy right there, that's up 3%. Buffett, they just completed the Oxy chemical subsidiary acquisition. I mean, maybe they just ended up taking Oxy private if prices end up getting juicy enough. So we're going to see with that. Joby's up a little bit. Google's up a little bit. SoFi's up a little bit. Where is Hoodie? That should be up because of Bitcoin. Hoodie is 116. That's up 1.2% because of Bitcoin. Coinbase is up 3%. Because of Bitcoin. MicroStrategy should be up. MSTR, that's up 5%. Bitmine is not trading overnight. Let me check my phone and see where Bitmine's at. Wow, I did not expect the oil prices or the oil companies to go that nuclear. I really didn't. Bitmine is up a little bit. It's up like 20 cents. Nothing crazy. Palantir, are we getting a move back? We are getting the move, 4.4. Yeah, I mean, look, based on some of the research I've done over the weekend, it is obvious that Palantir was involved in this. It's like more than obvious. Now, granted, I think the reason it sold off on Friday was just people were waiting until 2026 to take profits. The entire SaaS sector was down. CRM, Adobe were down 4%. CRM is back up 0.35. Adobe is up 0.27. So those two stocks have not recovered their losses. But, I mean, you got the market probably thinking Palantir is the defense proxy for everything that's going on right here. And that's why that's green. Silver prices, let me pull this up. Silver is up 6%. Wow, gold's up 2%. So it's not like this is just a Bitcoin thing. Silver and gold is up 6 and 2%. You guys say Bitmine's up 4%. Why am I not seeing that? It's not loading on Hood for me. Okay, I guess Bitmine is up 4%. It should be, given Ethereum's up a decent chunk. Yeah, it's not showing on Webull or Hood, but I guess you guys are seeing it. Bitmine's up. But look at gold and silver. My goodness. So everything is getting a rally on this and getting some excitement and momentum. Legend. Oh, it's showing on. Okay, but Legend doesn't have a lot of volume. Legend, whenever a stock only trades on Legend, it doesn't have a lot of volume. But that, you know, it probably will hold some of those gains because, I mean, Ethereum's up. It's up the most it's been in like a couple weeks at this point. So that makes sense. SoFi now going relatively flat. Rocket Lab's flat. The rare earth stocks are up a little bit. On Semiconductors up a little bit. Oklo's up 1.7. Ondas is up a little bit. AMD's up 1.4%. Saidu Space is up 6. Datadog's up a little bit. D-Wave is up 1%. Citigroup up a little bit. Nebius is up 1.6. Your data center names, they use a lot of oil, use a lot of energy. If those prices are coming down, that could be good for their margins as well. Iren is up 1.62% as well. This feels like a very late Santa Claus rally. Yeah, I mean, Friday felt like a late Santa Claus rally, to be honest, especially given high beta is what ended up benefiting. S&P is at 684. But also, I think the stuff that happened over the weekend is what catalyzed the movements that we're seeing. ASTS right there, flat. The overnights as well. Micron, dude. Micron is not stopping. 2.7. 324. I mean, look, Micron's cheap. It's just, do you buy into this much strength? That's the question. I don't blame anyone that buys into this much strength. I am not a fan of buying into that much strength, but I can't give you a fundamental reason not to buy into that strength. So it's just a question of the risk reward, and the risk might be worth the reward, to be honest. Palantir now 176. That's up a full 5%. So anyone who bought that dip on Friday is also getting some of that momentum. CVX is only up 10% on Hood. Let me see on Webull. No, now it's up 10%. Wasn't Chevron up 19% though? We were in the, or was that Exxon? No, that was Chevron. That was in the, I think everyone else saw it. We were up like 19.9%. I guess that got faded down pretty quickly, or that would have been a glitch. But we saw Chevron at freaking, I'm sure it wasn't just me. We saw it at 19%. But yeah, now it's only up 9%. Exxon right there up 7.3. Where is Nvidia? Coinbase up 2.7. Nvidia is up 0.4. Lemonade is down 0.2. S&P 683. How about the Qs? Up 0.26. Amazon is up 0.11. Apple is down a little bit, and then Nike is up a little bit as well. Yeah, we saw it up there, right? That was weird. It got faded down. Got faded down quick. And then Amazon took an ugly dump on Friday. Amazon right there, up a little bit. So the names that are benefiting the most overnight are your defense contractors like a Palantir. Is Lockheed Martin getting any of this? They're up 1%. Okay, so some of the defense contractors are moving. Palantir, the main software one that's moving. Raytheon actually up 2.3%. So that's good. Micron is benefiting, and then the oil names are benefiting. Crypto names are benefiting. Everything else is relatively flat. I mean, you're not seeing anything crazy. Amcor's up 2.07%, so that one's getting a little bit more love. How about Zeta? Zeta's up 3%. But let me just say this on Zeta. It's becoming a big name, guys. Like on Twitter, it's becoming a big name. Like people, it's showing up every day now in multiple people's feeds on multiple different accounts talking about it. I did my deep dive. I mean, I've known about it for 4 or 5 months. I ignored it until like I said, you know what, let me just look at it. The numbers look really compelling, so I like it. I have a position, but it's becoming one of those names where if they have one of those like real turning point, inflection point quarters in Q1, I mean, you got a lot of retail that's behind it. And the good thing is the multiple is still so depressed that I can't say it's a meme stock or anything like that because they just don't have a multiple. Now, there's a short report. There's some stuff around lawsuits, so that is what's holding it down, I think. But if that stuff's resolved, I think this name might be able to make a move. VG right there, that's up 1.4. Shell, that should be up 4%, 5%. Shell is up. What's the ticker symbol for Shell? Hold on. It is SHEL. No, that's down. That's down. Webull showing me that. Why is that one down, but Chevron's up? That's weird, unless that's a mistake. That one's showing it to be flat. Metaplanet's up 15. That's because of what do you call it? That's because of Bitcoin obviously making a move. Industrials are moving. Some of the drone stocks. Kratos is getting a lot of attention as well on X right now. Kratos and Ondas. Kratos, wow, that's up 4%. Ondas is becoming like a heavyweight in terms of retail attention. So maybe this one is worth looking at it very seriously as well. $4 billion company, price of sales of 146. Obviously the value. See, like the difference between Ondas and Zeta. Zeta price of sales is 3. Ondas is 146. Now, granted, Ondas might have a better story. I haven't looked into it, but you do have some of these stocks that have a bit more of an aggressive multiple. And then Nvidia right there, that's a 0.39% on the day. ASML, that one continuing its move. Again, Friday, very friendly to ASML and Micron. ASML up another 1.5%. All right, let's get into some headlines. I got to be out of here by 9 o'clock Eastern. So we'll spend the next 50 minutes trying to go through what happened. Redwire, that's up 4.6%. But overall, futures like it. Now, you're not seeing a massive move on like big names. But oil, some of the semis, and crypto, and then some of the data center names are getting some love. Everything else relatively flat to green. But it's not like a catastrophic red that maybe people expected after the news came out on Saturday. All right, cool. So let's get into it. Let's talk about what happened. Again, this is really the only story that matters of the weekend. I didn't really see any other crazy headlines, but this is the thing that's going to determine probably the next few weeks of how this plays out. So let's go through a couple of different things that happened. First of all, when we talk about Nike, maybe Tim Cook knew this special operation was taking place because this is Maduro on the plane that the U.S. took him back on. He's wearing a Nike Tech. Those are sold out. I mean, it's like all publicity is good publicity, right? You got a dictator wearing a freaking Nike Tech, and it's all sold out on their website. So maybe Sydney Sweeney is not what's needed to actually get this thing to move. But this is kind of surreal, right? Looking at this picture and then seeing Maduro right here on the plane coming from the United States. So again, I want to go through a variety of different things, but let me just preface this by once again saying I'm not a geopolitical expert. I'm going to try to understand everything that's going on the best way that I can. I really don't care about imposing a political opinion of U.S. good, U.S. bad. Like I don't care. Genuinely, I don't care. Everyone can make up their own opinions. I care about just analyzing a multitude of different perspectives and putting that together. And the perspectives I've tried to gather over the weekend are those of people from Venezuela. Here's a journalist, Mariana Atencio, that I thought had a pretty interesting take, and she's been talking about this stuff for the past 20 years. Here's what she had to say, and ultimately why she thought this was a good thing to happen.
Because it's a question that we absolutely need to reframe here. And I am certain that every Venezuelan will support what I'm about to say. This is not blood for oil, and this is not about regime change. We voted these people out legitimately last year. We voted for Maria Corina Machado and her running mate Edmundo González Urrutia, and Nicolas Maduro stole the election, didn't have proof for it, so he's essentially a dictator. For 25 years, he has been torturing, imprisoning people, leading to the largest refugee crisis practically in the world, definitely in our hemisphere. 8 million Venezuelans have left, which has provoked refugee crisis and immigration crises all over the Americas, including in the United States. This provoked a humanitarian crisis where in a country with so many barrels of oil, you didn't even have medicine or food. And if I may, I know it firsthand because I lost my father during that humanitarian crisis because of the lack of medicine. So this is a catastrophe that is happening, a 2.5-hour flight from Miami in our hemisphere, continuous human rights abuses that is also, by the way, spreading influence to places like Colombia, like Mexico, like Peru, and destabilizing the entire region. So this is absolutely not about oil. This is about us as a nation wanting to come back to the fold of Western democratic nations and to the values that those nations represent. And I believe it's in the interest of the United States and every single American citizen to want that as well. We have tried by every means necessary, including democratic means, to get rid of this regime. But again, as I mentioned before, Nicolás Maduro was a puppet, and you saw in his foolish, embarrassing, almost buffoonish behavior in the way that he reacted to President Trump's threats and to the buildup in the Southern Caribbean that he's clearly not calling the shots here. I am worried about right now these two power brokers that have already on the ground reacted to the news and seem to be vying for this power vacuum. Padrino Lopez and Diosdado Cabello, way more powerful and way more fearsome than Nicolás Maduro.
So again, when I hear something like that, which to sum up, basically she's saying the Maduro regime has created a ton of oppression from an economic perspective, which has led to a country that is basically sitting on almost $9-10 trillion of oil, and people don't have enough food and don't have proper medicine. Like there's an issue there. And the issue there comes from dictatorship, communism, all those other things that they've been waiting years, decades to get rid of. And when you hear that perspective from people in Venezuela, Bitcoin right there going for 93, then it's hard for me to take the other side of it when I'm hearing those stuff. And I'm sure there's other people that disagree, but I've just heard a lot more perspectives that agree versus disagree on that idea of the United States carrying out this operation. Now, for the people asking why is Bitcoin pumping, well, Bitcoin thrives technically on instability and volatility. Now, it's weird because geopolitical instability has not necessarily been kind to Bitcoin over the past couple of months. But then again, maybe one could argue that this was the geopolitical event that was needed to really get things back in order. This could also be weekend shenanigans. Like we saw this last week, and then it was down to 87 on Monday. I kind of think that's not going to be the case this time. It seems like there's a lot more momentum there. But you're getting some more excitement from the crypto markets, basically on the idea of potentially that things are going to become more unstable. The dollar potentially might become more unstable as well, and that'll be using Bitcoin as a hedge. Now, here's another video from a person from Venezuela. This person is not a fan of Trump. So for those that love Trump, get ready to hear her say some mean things about Trump. But she is really happy that he did what he did.
For all my Americans shitting on Trump for bombing Venezuela, let me tell you, I am Trump's #1 hater. I am also Venezuelan. And let me tell you, for all of you that are commenting on social media, oh my God, no war, we didn't sign for this. Oh my God, poor people, they must be so terrified. Let me tell you, every single Venezuelan that is not working for the government, the dictatorship that has been in place for more than 25 years, we are stoked. We are happy. Even the people that are currently still in Venezuela, everyone's happy about this. So can you please just educate yourself and stop spreading this bullshit narrative that, oh my God, poor people, like they must be so scared. No, we're not scared. We've been waiting for this shit for 25 years. We've lost family members. We've escape the country. We've had to leave everything behind to start over. Yes, some of us know Trump is a piece of shit, but sometimes you battle the devil with a bigger devil. So let him do what he needs to do, and then we can go back to shitting on him, okay?
I thought that was interesting to show because someone who obviously is not a fan of Trump, which I'm sure there's plenty of people that do not have that are from Venezuela but aren't fans of Trump, are still applauding this move. So again, there are counter perspectives here, and there's plenty of people in Venezuela that are. I mean, you've got all these protests going on in Venezuela of saying to return Maduro and bring him back, but a lot of the expats that have left Venezuela and fled, a lot of the refugees, are taking the side of the ideological spectrum that is the Western liberal that does not have to deal with 25,000% inflation, that does not have to worry about where their next meal is coming from, that does not have to worry about going into McDonald's and the McDonald's people saying that there's no chickens because there's no supply chain for them to give you a burger. The fact that you don't have to worry about that, and then you're complaining that a dictator has been captured by the world's best military to offer a chance for some freedom, which again, I'm not necessarily saying Trump did this to free the Venezuelan people. There's probably a more selfish ulterior motive here. So I'm not trying to be naive in the fact that saying Trump is doing this to free the Venezuelan people. Like, no, obviously it's probably around oil and making the United States way of life better. But to take the side of the Western liberal that is trying to be with the oppressed and the disenfranchised and saying that they are so excluded from society based on what Trump did, based on what I'm hearing from the Venezuelan people, is like, that's the wrong perspective. That whole collectivist communist approach, standing up for Maduro because he's, the person that will bring a collective approach to everybody. It's like, no, that it hasn't worked. It's failed. And there's a lot of people that left Venezuela because it failed. Same thing with Cuba, same thing with Colombia. And so, again, I just think there are various perspectives here, but the overwhelming perspective I'm seeing is people from Venezuela or that have left Venezuela critiquing the Western liberal that is trying to act like they're academically and intellectually superior on the theorization of what happened over the weekend versus the practical reality of what happened, which is the potential of hope and the potential of a chance to overthrow a regime. The United States is not necessarily living under an authoritarian regime, although, as people try to say Trump is authoritarian, that's fine. You can have that opinion, but we are not living under that same type of exact regime. And you're seeing this in Iran as well. Iran is having massive protests. You have a lot of people that died over the weekend from the police that have been shooting protesters that have been going back and forth. There's actually a video of someone taking a flamethrower and like lighting cops on fire. Like, it's crazy the type of stuff that's happening in Iran. But they are also feeling that they're very close to overtopping the Ayatollah. And if that does happen, that is a chance for freedom for the Iranian people. And so I think that's what's going on across the world. Obviously, it's a lot more nuanced than that, but that perspective to me seems to be the most strong. And I think that's why the equity markets probably aren't reacting as aggressively towards that as well, because you're not getting a ton of backlash from what the United States did. I mean, you had a lot of our European allies, even Macron came out and said, I support what the United States did. I mean, you have a lot of Western allies that have been thoroughly against what Venezuela has been doing. By the way, lower oil prices are all going to help them as well. And they are fans of it. They're not necessarily framing the United States as a colonial imperial empire. You have a lot of people that are doing that as well, especially a lot of the leftists in the United States. I actually listened into a couple of protests, just like on YouTube live streams, and tried to understand their argument. And their argument was that, the United States is imperialist and we need to let Maduro be Maduro. Whereas the United States has a different perspective right here. This is what Rubio had to say about the experts on this topic.
Number one, most of the experts that people have on television, I watch these experts and it's clown hour. Okay, these are people that have focused their entire career on the Middle East or some other part of the world because that's where all the action was. Very few of them know anything about Venezuela or the Western Hemisphere. Venezuela looks nothing like Libya. It looks nothing like Iraq. It looks nothing like Afghanistan. It looks nothing like the Middle East other than the Iranian agents that are running through there plotting against America. Okay, these are Western countries with long traditions among their at a people-to-people and cultural level and ties to the United States. So there's nothing like that. So I think people need to stop ascribing the apples and oranges here, the apples of the Middle East to the oranges of the Western Hemisphere.
But do you?
Number two, this is about the national interest of the United States. And what I'm confident of is we are in a safer and better place because we're taking it seriously. The alternative would have been to leave Maduro there as an indicted drug trafficker, illegitimate president, running the country, open invitation for all of our adversaries to do whatever they want against the United States from Venezuela, that was not going to continue. What the alternative would have been to allow a drug trafficker to continue to use national territory and elements of nation-state power to further drug trafficking organizations. Read the indictment. This guy used the levers of their security apparatus not to arrest drug traffickers, but to cooperate and facilitate the trafficking of drugs for the purpose of getting them into the United States. And that's going to stop.
And then this is what Rubio said are going to be the first steps as they continue to run the country.
Well, a couple things. First of all, Maria Corina Machado is fantastic, and she's someone I've known for a very long time, and she's that whole movement is. But we are dealing with the immediate reality. The immediate reality is that unfortunately, and sadly, but unfortunately, the vast majority of the opposition is no longer present inside of Venezuela. We have short-term things that have to be addressed right away. We all wish to see a bright future for Venezuela, a transition to democracy. All of these things are great, and we all want to see that. I've worked on that for 15 years on a personal level, both in the Senate and now as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State. These are things I still care about. We still care about. But what we're talking about is what happens over the next 2-3 weeks, 2-3 months, and how that ties to the national interest of the United States. And so we expect to see more compliance and cooperation than we were previously receiving. With Nicolas Maduro, you could not make a deal or an arrangement. Although he, by the way, was given very generous offers. He could have left Venezuela as recently as, a week and a half ago. There were opportunities available for him to avoid all of this because now he's not someone we can work with.
So the fact that they gave him those offers and he rejected that is also what prompted them to do this. But in the last few hours, he officially started to become more friendly towards the negotiations. But by then, the United States had already agreed that it was time to move on. Farzad, thanks for the super chat. 2026 is going to be absolutely insane. I think it escalates through the end of the decade up until China decides to take Taiwan. That will be the climax, depending on what the U.S. decides to do. So although some of our European allies have been happy that this has happened and they've not condemned the United States for doing this, obviously China and Russia have condemned it. It is a bit ironic with Russia that has literally invaded Ukraine for the past 4 years to say that we reject the United States' approach to this. But China has also come out and said that, we don't like that the United States has threatened another sovereign nation's sovereignty, right? And violated their agency. Now, there were a couple other perspectives over the weekend from Venezuelan people that I thought was also really interesting. One person came out and said, for all the Americans that are critiquing the United States and taking China's side on what's going on with Venezuela, his argument was, why do you think China and Russia even care about Venezuela? It's not to protect our sovereignty. It's not to uphold the Maduro legitimacy of the regime because, given that he lost the election by an overwhelming, it wasn't like it was 51-50. It was like 70-30. There is no legitimacy to the regime. It's because of oil. They want the oil as well, which is also why Trump said that China will be getting a lot of oil from us. And so you have some perspectives pushing back against the China-Russia geopolitical argument by saying, wait a second, they want our oil too. So just because China and Russia are more aligned with the Maduro regime, obviously, than the United States. So for them to have easy access to oil, that is the only reason they were fans of Maduro. It wasn't because they respected him as a leader or anything. One argument in terms of Russia-Ukraine is that if the United States is to be able to take over Venezuelan oil and plummet oil prices, which again, we're seeing nat gas futures down 4%, that could put a big wrench in the funding that Russia's getting from their oil monopoly. And as a result, that could actually be very productive to ending the Russia-Ukraine war, because the reason Russia is able to conduct this and continue going on is because they have unlimited amounts of oil money, and a lot of European nations still have to buy their oil. They have no choice. If oil prices start going down and Russia starts losing a lot of funding, maybe there's a world where Putin feels a lot more compelled to officially stop the fighting in Ukraine. So, and if that's the case and we have more geopolitical stability, obviously that's good for equities. So, again, there's a lot of different things that are going to be playing out here, and I think it's going to take a lot of time to see how this ends up playing out. But on the first sort of dynamics of what I'm seeing, this is some clips of Venezuelans who fled to Miami. As you can see right there, they're crying, celebrating. And again, there's also different perspectives. I'm not saying there's not. I'm just saying when you see these people and how happy they are for this, it makes you realize a lot of people were not happy with Maduro at all. The one personal story I have from this, and I think I told this a long time ago, is that I was when I was in 5th grade, my music teacher, I'll never forget this. She was Cuban, and she was telling us and describing what Fidel Castro was like. And we were in 5th grade. We had no idea about geopolitics or communism or capitalism or anything like that. Chevron right there up 10.8%. But I remember she told me, or she told the whole class, that She went to visit her grandfather in Cuba. And while she was leaving, she asked her grandfather, Papa, why can't you come back with us? Why can't you come with us to America? And I'll never forget the story. Her grandpa knelt down and told her, I think she was like 10 years old at the time, if I go, they will kill me, because you weren't allowed to leave. And from that moment, I started, I guess, my journey of trying to understand the nature of communism and capitalism, and like what really happens under a regime that says they want to protect everybody and give everyone equal rights. I mean, like, the brutal reality of that is that if you want to protect everyone's individual rights or and give them freedom, you have to violate their individual rights and freedom, because you cannot impose those types of things. Once you impose it, it ends up becoming authoritarian. And I think when you think about it from those perspectives, they're not thinking about the United States being an imperial regime. Some of them are, but a lot of them are thinking of, hey, the United States is actually helping. Now, will it actually end up helping? We have a lot of bad examples where the United States ended up creating power vacuums and didn't get shit done, like in Iraq, wasting trillions of dollars. So it's I understand the skepticism about what's going on with the United States. Chevron right there up 11%. But I guess the question is going to be, over time, does it actually play out in that realm? Matt says, I work in oil and gas. I know a lot of our Venezuelans that now work in office because they used to work back in Venezuela, but fled because they couldn't get a decent job back home in Venezuela. Yeah. And again, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I've been trying to study as much as I can about like the Venezuelan people, and, you know, just been trying to watch as many videos and documentaries as I can. It's like, it's not a great place to live. There's massive hyperinflation, complete political illegitimacy. There's not really massive opportunities for jobs. And so you've got a sense of hope right now around the population. The question is going to be, will that sense of hope actually manifest itself in a meaningful way? This is the Venezuelan oil industry. This chart right here, I think, is very important as well. Venezuela is under 1% of global oil supply, despite having its largest reserves. Now, the U.S. has sanctions on Venezuela, and that's probably stopped them from being able to export as much oil as possible as well. But the point is, the lack of infrastructure throughout the country has not led to the ability for them to meaningfully create the oil that's needed to help the country survive. And as a result, if the United States takes this over, that's going to be a big deal. Mary, thanks for the super chat. This has been going on since 2000. I appreciate you and Matt, Money, and Chris for all the content. My mom and brother are still there. I'll be there at the NY meetup. Don't let the media fool you. Shout out to Mary. She was the person, I believe, who emailed me over the weekend, and she is also from Venezuela. And this was her email. She said, I know Trump is not a saint and I'm an independent, but we have been telling previous administrations about the dangers of the narco regime and how it needed to be out for the past few decades. And so, again, you got to weigh this against the perspective from other people that's there. Yeah, Maritza, there she is. So, you know, she was very happy to see Americans like myself, you know, show the perspective of Venezuelans that are saying, hey, maybe Venezuelans don't hate this. But you got a lot of other Americans, leftists, that are obviously very upset about this. Seb's right there. Thanks for the super chat. Regime change from the U.S. worked out pretty well in Germany, South Korea, Japan, Panama. Just saying. Look, I agree with you. I'm not trying to defend the United States right here. As an American, I think the most important thing you can do is critique your country. I mean, the beauty of being an American is that you're allowed to critique your country. That's part of having individual freedoms. And I'll be the first one to say, yeah, regime change has not worked out at all anytime we've tried to do it in any meaningful capacity. And I don't know if this time's going to be different, but what I do know is that from the perspectives I'm seeing across the world, they are more happy than not that this is happening. And I guess that's the perspective that, at least for now, I am defaulting to. The other thing that's important to understand is this is not a war per se. You know, Iraq turned into a war. This is not necessarily a war that we're seeing. This was a special operation. It was, quite frankly, done flawlessly. Not a single American got hurt in the entire process of getting the job done. And I don't believe there were any meaningful casualties. Like, I think a few people got injured, but maybe there were a couple, but there was no like massive 75 people died or something like that. It was a very targeted approach to getting the job done. And they were a few minutes away from Maduro getting into a safe house, and the United States military ended up getting there and bring him in. Bitcoin 93. There you go. 93. Yeah, this was a 4-hour battle. This is not necessarily turned into a 4-year war. Now, the regime change, which inevitably is going to have to be put in, probably is going to, I don't think this thing ends in a couple months. I think it's going to take a few years. I think it's going to extend past Trump's presidency. But the ramifications of the oil that ends up entering the global ecosystem, I think is going to be pretty immediate if they can actually start importing that oil soon. And so I don't think this is a war, but it's obviously being perceived in a lot of different ways. Now, you obviously have a bunch of Democratic senators and congressmen that are not happy about what's been going on. You had Ilhan Omar and Bernie Sanders come out over the weekend explaining how they completely reject this and this was unconstitutional. This wasn't done through congressional authority. The approach that the administration had towards discussing the constitutionality of it is that it was a law enforcement decision, is what Rubio described, and that if we told Congress, there was no chance that this was ever going to be able to get played out. So here's what Rubio said about why Congress was not informed about this.
We call members of Congress immediately after. This was not the kind of mission that you can do congressional notification on. It was a trigger-based mission in which conditions had to be met night after night. We watched and monitored that for a number of days. So it's just simply not the kind of mission you can call people and say, hey, we may do this at some point in the next 15 days. But it's largely a law enforcement function. Remember, at the end of the day, at its core, this was an arrest of 2 indicted fugitives of American justice, and the Department of War supported the Department of Justice in that job. Now, there are broader policy implications here, but it's just not the kind of mission that you can pre-notify because it endangers the mission.
Plus, if I could add one thing to that, Congress has a tendency to leak. This would not be good. If they leaked, General, I think it would have been maybe a very different result. But I have to say, they knew we were coming at some point, you know. A lot of ships out there, they sort of knew we were coming. We went there. But Congress will leak, and we don't want leakers.
So that's how the U.S. ended up justifying this. Let's do a poll in the chat and see what people are thinking here. I guess the question we'll ask is, do you think, let's do a simple one. Do you think what the U.S. did was okay? And I know it's a very basic question, but how would people answer that? Again, you know, and my political opinions on this are not formed. I mean, it's been 2 days of me really diving deep into that. I don't want to pretend to have a massive opinion one way or the other. I'm trying to default to what I think makes sense from the Venezuelan people. And that to me seems like they want to make this happen while also recognizing the nuance of the fact that power vacuums and regime changes have not been in the United States' favor ever. We've not ever done it successfully in a meaningful way. So the idea that this time it's going to be successful, I mean, I don't know. I'm very skeptical that that's going to be the case. But you also have a lot of people that internally have wanted to get this done for a very long time. And the U.S. officially took action right here. It's such a complex question. It is actually such a basic, but yet still complex question. So in terms of markets, I mean, we talked about the implications of this. Oil companies, like, would I chase Chevron here? No. I mean, at the end of the day, the move is the move, right? Up 11%. Like, Chevron is not a name that moves up 11% easily. Neither does Exxon or any of these legacy oil companies. Now, Bloom Energy and Oklo can move up 11%, but Chevron's not moving up 11%. I mean, over the past year, it was up 5%. So the fact that it's up double what it was up over the past year in the overnight markets, I'm not chasing that. I don't think I know enough about oil and the oil industry to chase it. I think any bad headline from Venezuela, what if, like, you know, the U.S. companies try to go in there and they realize that it's going to take longer than expected. The infrastructure is not there. I mean, there's a billion different headlines you could come up with for why that move gets faded. But I do think if these names get sold off aggressively, then the tailwind of a decade of exporting Venezuela or importing Venezuela oil ends up being relatively attractive given the multiples they're trading at. And that's when you probably go long. But that means Chevron should be down 11% versus up 11% to make that decision. Up 11% is very hard to be able to be excited for a name like that. So I think we're going to need to see some more data on how the oil companies perform. Palantir right there is up 4%. Micron's still up 2.7%. Rocket Lab was up a lot on Friday. It's down 1.3%. Again, Rocket Lab holding onto a lot of its high beta. And that's continuing to give it some more momentum. LMN, thank you for the $10 super chat. Happy New Year, everyone. In 2024, I was up 80%, 2025 up 30%. Thank you, Amit, for the great community, everyone else helping each other. Beautiful community, and also happy birthday. It is not my birthday, although you are the original person who started spamming happy birthday every day. So I appreciate you. But yeah, congrats on all the progress. And We'll be here every single day analyzing what's going on. I did not think 2026 was going to start off with this. I mean, legitimately, I wake up Saturday morning at 4:40. I'm thinking I'm going to wake up, get started, get a lot of progress done. I had to do a lot of stuff before going to Vegas. And this is the first headline that I see. I mean, literally, when did I tweet this Trump tweet? And I thought I kind of was in a dream, to be honest. It's like, really? We did it then? It says 1:44 a.m. because I'm in West Coast, but it was 4:44 a.m. I woke up at 4:40. I saw this, and then 4 minutes later, I posted this, and I was like, did this really just happen? And then I went to sleep, like, not even realizing the scale and magnitude of what took place. And then I woke up and I was like, oh my, that actually happened. So I just think there's going to be a lot of different implications of this, but like the immediate reaction of futures are going to tank the bed and people are going to be sad about it. Like, that's just not happening. You're seeing more of the market say this is actually good for oil prices. This is going to be rather good for the economy that depends on oil prices for pretty much everything. And the market is not looking at the morality of this. For those that say, oh, this is good for oil prices, but this is bad from a moral perspective because of what the United States did, the market doesn't care. The market's quite frankly never cared about the morality of any of these things. The market just cares about, like with Russia, Ukraine. You think the market wasn't upset that Putin invaded Ukraine? The market was upset that, holy crap, Ukraine has a lot of rare earth minerals that are now going to get a lot more expensive. Supply chains are going to flip overnight. That's why the market reacted to it. So I think sometimes we get a little bit too emotional about our own opinions around political events versus the market. The market's just pricing in what they think could happen. And right now they're pricing in that this is good, which you may morally think is not good, but that is how the market is thinking of it. So I guess we're going to see when we get a full week of trading that's opening up tomorrow. I mean, we had some volume on Friday, but we didn't have as much volume. Now we're starting to see a lot more volume come in, or probably will come in over the next week as the bond markets open as well. This was someone in Seattle who is emblematic of the people that are protesting what has happened.
With me, all. Hands up, Venezuela! Hands up, Venezuela! Free President Maduro! La lucha sigue! Libertad, socialismo o muerte! Venceremos! With me.
Okay, so now you have that going on all across Seattle and Portland and some of the more democratic parts of the country. And then you have the people that I told you that I showed in the beginning of the show, native Venezuelans that are just like more meaningfully applying historical context versus just free President Maduro as their slogan to explain what's actually happening. I mean, you listen to that context versus someone who probably knows nothing about Venezuela. I'm not saying I know anything about Venezuela either, so I'm defaulting to the people that know about it. And their ideological, dogmatic view like forces them to not be happy about what happened because it is an act of colonial imperialism, and it is the United States being evil again, which they might be right about. But there's nuance to that, and that's the hard part when you pick an ideological side of the spectrum. You forget about the nuance. And so when you look at what the Venezuelan people are saying, they're critiquing that exact liberal view on the entire situation. Yeah, the Biden tweet on Venezuela is kind of crazy. I mean, you've got some pretty old tweets of Biden explaining that this is what he posted. This was June of 2024. He said, Trump talks tough on Venezuela, but admires thugs and dictators like Nicolas Maduro. As president, I stand with the Venezuelan people and for their democracy. Now, I think the perspective I heard from a lot of Venezuelan people over the weekend, which is that just standing for us doesn't do shit for us. Like, oh, you feel bad for us. You stand with us in democracy. Like, that doesn't do anything for us. Like, you got to actually get rid of the guy if you actually are going to say you stand with us. And so when you've got people from the previous administration saying they vehemently reject what Maduro has been doing, and then you have someone from the current administration that said, all right, I mean, we're gonna do something about it. It offers a different perspective. And the question is, which perspective do you agree with? But I think that perspective is valuable to look at from both sides in terms of one that's doing something versus one that's saying they're going to do something. This was Trump, by the way, on October 17th, when he started hinting that Maduro might be in some trouble.
Maduro offered everything in his country, all the natural resources. He even recorded a message to you in English recently, offering mediation. What could we do in order to stop that?
He has offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to fuck around with the United States. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Maduro.
Well, I guess that led to them eventually finding out. This is also what Mr. Hegseth said about Maduro over the weekend as well.
Nicolas Maduro had his chance, just like Iran had their chance, until they didn't and until he didn't. He effed around and he found out. President Trump is deadly serious about stopping the flow of gangs and violence to our country.
So that's the administration's approach. That is the administration's approach. And again, if like one perspective is that this is all about oil, the other perspective is that this was also about illegal drugs that have been entering into the nation, led to massive overdose rates inside of the country, and stopping that. You know, in order to stop that, you ultimately need to stop the root cause of where the drugs are coming from, which ultimately ends up being these different regions that are profiting off those drugs entering into the United States. Bitcoin right there, 93.1. ETH, did we hit 32? Wow. When's the last time we were at 32? We touched it December 15th for a millisecond. Realistically, it was December 10th. We got to 3,400. So it's been a little less than a month, about 3.5 weeks. We can make a base at 3,200. That would be nice. Probably can get Bitmine a little bit of momentum as well. I mean, who knows, bro? Maybe this is the catalyst. I mean, there are plenty of reasons for why crypto might not work and why it's crypto winter, yada, yada. But if you have a geopolitical headline that is as aggressive as this, maybe this is what gets crypto to work. Now, again, this is Sunday. We see a lot of stuff happen on Sunday, so we got to see what plays out towards the end of the year, or at least till next week. But we got to see. When are you planning to hedge Bitmine? I haven't done it yet based on this exact reason. I was thinking like maybe we can get closer to 35 before I put a hedge on. And I don't know where we're open tomorrow, but right now I've done nothing. And so maybe we get a little bit closer to where I want to put my hedge on. But, you know, you got a lot of people thinking, all right, if this is how the year is starting off, if we're going super risk on with oil prices coming down, and input costs going down and earnings going up. We got corporate earnings starting in 10 days. I mean, maybe 2026 is going to be a lot more exciting than not. By the way, 72% of you said yes, what you thought the U.S. did was okay. 28% said no. And maybe there's not that much of a need to be cautious going into this year. Now, granted, it's January 4th. I mean, there's a lot more time to see what ends up playing out. But if oil prices meaningfully come down and we get to close to $50, right now we're at 57, I don't see how every company's earnings in some way or another start to benefit. And that just means that you have to put a higher multiple on those earnings. Now, again, the reason why I think a lot of people are cautious in 2026 is because the S&P 500 is trading at its highest price to sales ratio ever. We're trading at 3.3 times sales. Like, we've never traded at those levels, which means we're kind of in uncharted territory. Last time we traded at any of those levels, we ended up having a recession, a massive meltdown. So the market is trying, or at least people are trying to theorize that earnings will be enough, rate cuts will be enough, everything else will be in our favor to allow this party to keep going, even if we're trading at the multiple we're trading at. And maybe you need a massive market catalyst like this to actually make it happen. But I did not have this on my bingo card, and this is what ended up playing out. So that's what we got. That is what we've got. China says it cannot accept countries acting as a world judge after U.S. begins to occupy Venezuela. Again, China is going to vehemently basically get mad at this and not uphold that this was ethical. I will say, I think China, by the way, the China consulate was in the freaking country 5 hours before this happened, which was even the crazier part. When I found out about that detail, I was like, dude, what if we killed a couple Chinese officials just like through collateral damage? That would not have been pretty. So the chance that this went south, even if we captured Maduro, but we ended up killing a Chinese official that went to negotiate with the Venezuelans, that would not have been good because China would have had to respond in some. There's no way they would have let the United States just have a Chinese official be collateral damage. Like, I just don't think the Chinese would stand for that. Now, I don't think they would have to take some massive, aggressive, like World War III type of approach, but they definitely wouldn't be happy. And so, thank goodness that shit didn't take place. It was Delta Force. It was the best of the ops that we have. But like, just imagine that, like, that would not be a good thing. And so this thing could have went south very quickly. Ended up working out. But I think there's just so many more implications that we're going to see from it over the coming days. I have the audio from Air Force One. Let me see if I can get some of the clips of what Trump was saying about Colombia.
So is that what you would say, that we're in the business of nation building now?
We're in the business of having countries around us that are viable and successful, and where the oil is allowed to freely come out, because that's good. It gets the prices down. That's good for our country. Now, we have a very sick neighbor. It's not a neighbor, but it's close to a neighbor, and that's Venezuela. It's very sick. Colombia is very sick too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States, and he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
What does that mean? He's not going to be doing it very long.
He's not doing it very long. He has cocaine mills and cocaine factories. He's not going to be doing it very long.
So there will be an operation by the U.S. and
it sounds good to me. Yeah.
Rubio mentioned Cuba yesterday.
They kill a lot of people, yeah.
I mean, bro, if we're like, this Venezuela thing might end up working. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it does. But if we start taking over multiple countries, I don't know if that's the route to go down. I think we open ourselves up to a lot of different issues, even if there might be legitimate arguments for why those countries are also creating a lot of pain. Like the fact that we went into the amount of memes that have made about this over the past weekend, that we went into a country, just dragged the president out. He came back. And, low key, it's almost like Maduro was liking the attention. If you've seen any of the videos, he was laughing, smiling, wishing Happy New Year to everybody. Like, it's almost like he enjoyed the attention that he was getting on this. But for us to do that multiple times and actually be successful around it, I don't know if that's necessarily possible. So, yeah, and his wife. So, I mean, we're going to see. We're really going to see if the United States starts to take this approach in many different ways. Here's what Trump said about Cuba as well.
The history of the country, what they were able to do was amazing. They knew we were coming. We had a good part of the Navy, and they were able to capture this man alive. No military in the world could have done it. And as to this commander-in-chief, he did something people talked about doing. You just wait for Cuba. Cuba is a communist dictatorship that's killed priests and nuns. They preyed on their own people. Their days are numbered. We're going to wake up one day, I hope in 26.
This is Lindsey Graham, by the way, who's with Trump on the plane.
In our backyard, we're going to have allies in these countries doing business with America, not narco-terrorist dictators killing Americans. This is a big frigging day. And everybody in the world is thinking differently than they were just a few days ago because of what you did.
By the way, you mentioned something that's interesting. Lindsay mentioned bin Laden. I wrote about bin Laden 1 year before the attack at the World Trade Center. And I said, you got to go after bin Laden. It was in my book. And very few people want to say that, but it was in my book. You know that, I think. You've actually talked about it. But if they would have listened to me, they would have taken out bin Laden, and you wouldn't have had the World Trade Center tragedy.
Yeah, this is certainly going.
Did you know that?
Here's what Trump said about Greenland as well.
By the way, I will say this about Greenland. We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And Denmark is not going to be able to do it, I can tell you.
What would the justification be, sir? What would the justification
to boost up security in Greenland? They added one more dog sled. It's true. They thought that was a great move.
What would the justification be for a claim to Greenland? What would the justification be?
I just say this. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And the European Union needs us to have it. And they know that.
I think there's some.
By the way, I have to.
And this is what Elon tweeted. Had a lovely dinner with President and the First Lady. 2026 is going to be amazing. And this is what Trump said about Elon just now.
People want to go back to Cuba, and they want to work in Cuba, but Cuba's going down for the count. Thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. President, is Elon Musk back in the fold? You had dinner with him last night at Mar-a-Lago.
Elon's great. I say about Elon, he's 80% super genius and 20% he makes mistakes. But he's a good guy. He's a well-meaning person.
Can I ask you about one more thing that I've been wanting to ask you the last?
I mean, Elon's back with Trump. Trump's talking about Cuba, Greenland. We need to get them for national security. Bitcoin's pumping on this 93,000. Who would have thought this is how 2026 starts out? Who would have thought? But this is what's happening. And then you got NVIDIA's event tomorrow. We'll see if Mr. Jensen can get the market to finally give NVIDIA a little bit more of a multiple, given they beat earnings by $5 billion last quarter. NVIDIA right there at 189.71. But it's just a wild 2026. Absolutely wild way to start out 2026. And obviously it's not enough data to see what trends are here in the market. But if you're in high beta, you're up a lot. You're probably up more than 20% for the year. If you're in T1, Bloom, all these other names, Rocket Lab. If you're in Mag 7, you're flat, if not red for the year. Google's been doing okay. But if you're in Tesla, obviously you got hit last week. But if you're in oil and oil companies, I mean, you're getting a big surge overnight. And the question is now, will that momentum sustain itself as we get into the end of 2026 as well? Lisa Su will be speaking tomorrow as well. Yeah. So again, I will try to give as much background behind the scenes footage as I can. Again, I'll link my Instagram in the chat. You can follow me there. I will now start seriously posting on IG. And I will be in the Jensen keynote live. So I'm definitely going to fangirl when I see Mr. Jensen. But yeah, I'll try to give you guys as many details as I can from here. Market open, we'll still be here every day. I'll be up at 5:45 in the morning to do it. And probably missing the market close tomorrow and Tuesday. But we should have a market open every single day. And we'll keep going from there. Tanner will be here. Yeah, Tanner's flight got delayed. So he'll be here tonight. Jose is going to be here as well. I'm actually getting dinner with Jose tonight, so it'll be fun to meet him. And yeah, this is how we're starting 2026. Look at him. There he is right there. Tanner, are you on the plane right now? He might be on the plane right now. His flight got delayed by a lot, so he's going to be coming late. Are we going to talk to Jensen? I'm going to have a chance to ask him a question potentially. More likely than not, I'm not going to be called on to ask my question because there's a lot of people there. So I will be in a setting in which Tanner will be there as well. Me, Tanner, and Jose will potentially get to ask Jensen a question. But honestly, I'm probably not going to be able. There's just so many people there. So like maybe they pick me, maybe they don't. But I don't know, dude. I'd be kind of scared to ask him a question. Like, what would I ask? You can't, if you've seen some clips of Jensen, he gets some questions sometimes by reporters. And he just and sometimes if the questions are dumb, he has no problem roasting you for the question. He has zero problem like telling you to your face in a very intellectual way that was a stupid question. So I don't know if they pick me, I'm going to be a little scared. I got to start. Imagine I start off with currently right now. And he's like, wait a second. Did you just say currently right? Like, why didn't you just say right now or currently? Like, why are you putting both together? I would like freak out. I'd be like, that'd be crazy. What type of, I literally bought a leather jacket for this event. So I'm going to be wearing one tomorrow. I literally picked up a leather jacket. I had to for this event. So if I get to take a picture with him, I'll have a leather jacket. Do you have a question? No, I have no question. Now I'm interviewing a couple other NVIDIA executives in the physical AI space, the data center space, and the Nemotron open source model space. So I have questions for those, but to like Jensen, I don't know what I would ask Jensen. Tanner says he had, all right, so Tanner got the leather jacket too. All right, there you go. I don't know. What do you ask Jensen? Like, it's got to be like something important. But like, I don't know. I mean, there's so many things to ask him. I just haven't really thought about it. Realistically, I don't think I'm going to get a chance. But if I do, I better have a question. Friday, thank you for the $20 super chat. $19.99 on Black for me. I haven't started gambling at all. I don't really think I'm going to be gambling. I don't know. I'm not that much of a casino gambler type of guy. I'll throw the 20 on Black for you, and hopefully we make some money off that. But yeah, I'm probably not going to be gambling too much. In terms of the scene out here, I haven't been around too much, but at least in my hotel, relatively packed. Now, obviously, my hotel is probably one of the hotels that's more packed for CES, so it's not an accurate field or an accurate description of it. Steve went to AC over the weekend, Atlantic City, and he said it was packed. He was like, there's no recession. Like, the consumer is doing amazing there. So, yeah, I mean, I will go around this week and see what's here, but you know, it might just be packed because of CES, to be honest, versus actual people going on vacation. How does Jensen take his steak? Oh my gosh. I'm gonna get some steak tonight. We're doing medium rare for the third time in a row, baby. We are doing medium rare. We are doing it again. How much Bitcoin does Venezuela own? They actually, I don't know. They have a lot of gold, though, I saw over the weekend. I don't know if they have a ton of Bitcoin. But they have a decent chunk of gold. They have 161 metric tons, 22 billion of gold, and potentially 10 trillion of oil. So yeah, they definitely have a ton. Tanner says, where do I pick up your room key? Tanner, why do you want my room key? What? You want my room key, Tanner? Don't you hate sharing a bathroom? What are you going to, like, why do you need my room key? Tanner's being a little sus with that question, bro. A little sus with that question, Tanner. Upgraded room? I didn't get an upgraded room. Dude, Tanner, you and I probably have the same room. Not the exact same room, but the same type of room. I offered Tanner last time we were in Vegas to stay in the same room. He said no. So I don't know why he's talking about room keys this time. I offered him. I was like, bro, you can wake up together, do the market open. He was like, no, that's weird. I was like, all right, fine. That's weird. You can do whatever you want then. This guy makes all the jokes and I try once and he calls me weird. Well, that's the fun of it. I can flip your jokes and make you weird now. All right, guys, so that's it. I'm out of here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll be back tomorrow morning. And yeah, excited to be here. It should be a fun event. Hopefully we get to take some pictures. Again, I'll be on IG. I really am enjoying Instagram. Like, I've just gotten to connect with so many of you guys and actually like talk to you. And it's really cool. It's really cool. So I will be doing a lot of behind the scenes on IG. And I'll be posting it throughout the week and probably throughout the year. It'll just be like, it'll be the behind the scenes on my life, to be honest. It's not like professional stock market. There's not going to be any breaking news stuff on Instagram, but it hopefully is fun stuff. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Love this because you hated it. No, I really, dude, I've hated Instagram for the past 10 years. And then last night, I don't know why. I was just like, let me just go on IG. And I posted something. I was like, this is kind of fun, bro. This is like I was like, this like reminds me of high school, like on Instagram. So yeah, now I'm back here. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys. I will see you guys soon. Tomorrow morning, we'll see what happens with NVIDIA, AMD tomorrow. We'll see what happens with how the markets interpret what's going on with Venezuela. Overall, seems like markets aren't necessarily bearish on it, but obviously we've got a ton of implications that probably will happen over the coming months, and we'll see how it ends up playing out. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys tomorrow on the market open. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.